I met Eileen when we were both struggling and insignificant. To support her dream of stardom, I sacrificed everything and finally helped her get into the production of a big director. She became an overnight sensation with that blockbuster. I was full of joy and anticipation for our future, only to unexpectedly learn that she had hooked up with the son of an investor soon after joining the crew. All our contacts were blown. Furious, I took to the internet to expose the truth and seek an explanation. But she turned the tables and accused me of wrongdoing. A manipulation of public opinion by capital, and the overwhelming backlash from her fans made me the target of scorn. Before I could fight back, I was killed by one of her extreme fans. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself reborn to the time before I introduced Eileen to the big director. She wanted to be famous, right? I would help her experience the joy of blooming fully. In the rental apartment, facing Eileen's eager eyes, I pretended to hesitate and said, "I'm afraid that won't work." I had subtly mentioned to Clarence a few times that you'd be perfect for that role, but she always brushed it off. I heard from Doreen that there's already someone in mind for it. Doreen is my agent, although I'm just an unknown. She has some top-tier artists in her roster, so it's not unusual for her to have access to such information. Eileen didn't suspect anything. She was getting anxious. I'm already 25 this year. Not exactly young in this industry. It's been 3 years. And I'm still an unknown actress without a breakout role. How many more years can I afford to waste? Bailey, can you please help me think of something? I scoffed inwardly, thinking it was because her acting was terrible. She looked up at me, shaped eyes especially sincere when she gazed this way. How about you arrange to have dinner with Clarence privately? She quickly added, as if afraid I might misunderstand, I don't mean anything else. I just really want to fight for this role. I'm also thinking about our future. I don't want you to keep living like this. I silently mocked her, realizing she was aware of my struggles. We had both moved to the north to chase dreams, but it was always me supporting her. While in the end, I was worse off than Wang Bakwan. At least Wang Bakwan enjoyed 18 days of fortune after Zhu Hui became emperor. In my last life, after Eileen became famous, I gained nothing and was killed by her extreme fan. I hesitated before speaking, but it seems like Clarence doesn't really like me getting close to her. And it's the same with other actors in the crew, always much more patient with the actresses. Maybe Mr. Clarence is strict and avoids any suspicion with male actors. Besides, my scenes have already wrapped up. So what would it look like for me to arrange to meet her privately? In reality, and her husband have long since gone their separate ways. Her male actors isn't about avoiding suspicion, but because she simply doesn't like men, although she's married with children. It's just to placate her old-fashioned father. She prefers strikingly beautiful actresses over handsome male actors. And Eileen happens to fit bill. Didn't she want me to help her change her resources? Since she wants it so badly, why not let her go for it herself, cutting out the middleman? At this point in time, Clarence's past issues and her strained marriage hadn't been exposed yet. Have always been whispers about Clarence's sexual orientation over the years. After my description, Eileen would certainly be able to figure something out if she put her mind to it. Just a matter of how far she's willing to go for her ambition. After all, as the saying goes, those who wish to fish will take the bait. If she doesn't have that mindset, I can't force her into Clarence's bed. If she does, then the wheels of her fate are about to start rusting. That role isn't easy to get. In my last life, even after I formally introduced Eileen to Clarence as an actress, she nearly fell victim to Clarence's schemes after joining the crew. If she hadn't taken the opportunity to hook up with the young investor who attended the opening ceremony, Clarence have targeted her without hesitation. Then naturally tucked this on away. She won't be so lucky, with such a tempting opportunity handed to her. How could Clarence resist? When Eileen expressed her desire to try her best to secure the role and asked for Clarence's personal contact information, I gave it to her without hesitation. In my past life, I sacrificed everything to fulfill her dream of becoming a star, only to end up dying in bitterness. After what she did to me, simply preventing her from getting the same opportunities she had before would be too mild a revenge. I want her to bask in the height of her success, adorned in flowers and lavish praise, only to lose everything at her proudest moment. I want her to fall from the highest peak, crashing hard into the mud, never to rise again. Eileen acted quickly. In just a few days, she had Clarence wrapped around her finger. When she came back from her audition that day, she was practically limping. I pretended not to notice and even made her a big meal. Aside from a dish of pan-seared cod, everything else was spicy. Seeing Eileen not touch her food, I looked at her curiously. Why aren't you eating? These are all your favorite hometown dishes. I made them especially to celebrate your audition success. As I spoke, I affectionately piled a big serving of spicy boiled fish onto her plate, with guilt weighing on her. Eileen could only pretend nothing was wrong and served herself. That night, the dish she ate most was the non-spicy pan-seared cod, and as for me, took the for me. Seeing how much she enjoyed it, I didn't touch a bite, letting her have it all. After all, I loved her, and always gave her the best of everything. Later that evening, Eileen clutched her stomach, running to the bathroom countless times, hearing her stifle agonized moans from inside. I couldn't help but smile, harder to suppress than an Akisi recoil. That wasn't cod at all, but oilfish, for its side effects and often used by unscrupulous vendors as a substitute for silver cod. Poor Eileen had already suffered Clarence's abuse earlier that day, and now she was in for even more pain. The next day, seeing Eileen pale and almost faint from exhaustion, I kindly asked if she needed to go to the hospital. I suggested she get a thorough check-up. Her health was already poor, and frequent hospitalizations weren't uncommon. It would be a real loss if her illness delayed Clarence's new film. But Eileen dared not go to the hospital, quickly refusing, claiming she just had a bit of diarrhea, and that some anti-diarrheal medicine would fix it. I fetched some medicine, mixing in sleeping pill, and suggested she rest. After taking the medicine, Eileen said she was feeling drowsy. I told her that was normal and that Western medicine often causes drowsiness, encouraging her to take the day to rest since she wasn't feeling well. Once she was sound asleep, I used her fingerprint to unlock her phone. My initial intention was just to gather some evidence of her flirtatious exchanges with Clarence, but instead, I found a delightful surprise. In addition to photos she had sent Clarence of her body, and their flirty conversations. "You're so hot. I miss you. Come to roommate at Longwon Hotel tomorrow night at 8. I bought some new toys for us." Attached was a photo that could only be described as shocking, with all sorts of bizarre gadgets piled together, looking like a collection of torture devices. I never expected someone as old as Clarence to still be so adventurous. Eileen's determination to climb the ladder was even stronger than I thought. I silently took screenshots and sent them to my cell, erasing all traces before returning the phone to its place. The contact information I purchased for Clarence's husband at a high price would finally come in handy. I dialed Clarence's husband's phone, explained my purpose, and asked him to meet me in person. Clarence's husband is in his early 40s but has a lot of charm. A typical middle-aged man with a daddy style. Times to the left, no traces on him. Still a sensuous and successful man in his career. Clarence's husband doesn't fully believe that the chat records in my hand are real. After all, with the advanced technology of photo editing today, it could easily be a fake. I asked him to go to Longwon Hotel tomorrow night to verify the truth himself. If what I said is confirmed to be true, I hope you will cooperate with me in a play. Considering that I gave him the tip-off, I knew he would definitely go, and Eileen would certainly not have a good ending, probably ending up very miserable. In my last life, the means by which Clarence's husband dealt with the young beauty, who climbed into Clarence's bed, were told to me by Doreen when she was drunk and gossiping. I even had to admire. This uncle is really harsh. He left no room for survival. Not driving her to death but making her life more unbearable than death. Although Clarence's husband has been playing around separately from Clarence these years, it's one thing to hear rumors about the wife liking little girls, and another to see the rumors confirmed with one's own eyes. Seeing that his wife is a lesbian would be disgusting to any man. And after all these years, more than being Clarence's husband, he has become her partner of interest. It's not possible to just leave. Nor can he really destroy Clarence's career. The unfortunate little beauty became the best scapegoat. And this time, the scapegoat fell to Eileen. The ungrateful slut deserves to die. At 7:03, Eileen left the house as scheduled, telling me she was going to a dinner gathering organized by a new friend from the crew. They were all people I didn't know, and it would be awkward for me to go. Seeing her expression, she seemed worried that I might say I wanted to join. As a gentle and considerate boyfriend, I naturally chose to respect her freedom to socialize. After she left, I called Clarence's husband and told him that Eileen was on her way to the hotel. Hanging up the phone, I lit a cigarette while waiting for this good play to unfold. In the swirling smoke, I couldn't help but reflect on how I had step by step in my past life, where I was willing to give everything for Eileen. I think it's because I am someone who lacks love. Back then, having escaped to a foreign land, I was too eager to grasp something, mistaking a piece of fish eyes for a pearl. In my growing up process, I actually hardly experienced normal family affection and love. My father was an alcoholic, our family was in debt, and my mother was weak and incompetent, hiding in a corner crying after being beaten by my father, only to be coaxed and tricked by him the next day. As the eldest son, I was not only a punching bag, but also the main source of income for the family. My mother taught me to take good care of my younger brother, that he was my family, and only when he was okay could I be okay. Deep down, I didn't agree with this mindset, but I realized that only when I followed and adhered to it did my parents. The tiny bits of love they begrudgingly let slip through their fingers became one of the few traces of affection I ever received. You had to be obedient and give selflessly in order to get a little love in return. No one in this world would love you unconditionally. This rule was engraved in my bones from a young age, meant to discipline me for life, forcing me to follow it until I died. Later on, my family didn't let me continue school. They forked at a young age, essentially selling me to a sweatshop under the guise of a job. After hesitating for a few days, one night, I took the few $100 I had and escaped. Just like a joke, I literally ran away on a train in the middle of the night. Discussions about toxic families hadn't become common online, and it was only many years later that I understood my learned helplessness was a psychological wound inflicted by my family of origin. My constant need to please others to feel safe was what they call a people-pleasing personality. It was during this time when I didn't understand any of this that I met Eileen. I had just arrived in Kyoto, and it was snowing that day, bitterly cold. As I walked through a narrow alley, someone stole my bag, which contained everything I had at the time. I shouted for help and ran after the thief as hard as I could, but I cowed in catch-up. I slipped and fell, crashing to the ground in the most humiliating way. My nose was bleeding, and I lost one of my shoes during the chase. I was in pain, and crying so hard that my tears and snot froze together in the cold. It was the most pathetic sight imaginable. That's when Eileen appeared. With one hand, she effortlessly tossed the half-dead thief in front of me like she was discarding a plastic bag, and with the other hand, she handed me my backpack. Before she gave it to me, she even wiped off the mud spots with her sleeve, then asked if I needed to go to the hospital, if I could use a cheesy phrase to describe it. At that moment, she was like a beam of light shining into my life. She descended upon me like a goddess. For not knowing better back then, it was clearly a cliché scene I took as divine intervention, as if fate had finally sent me salvation. From that moment on, I plunged headfirst into it, and that plunge lasted for years. This, aside from occasionally showing some kindness, the so-called goddess was actually a heavyweight's comeback. I asked him where she was, and he handed me a mirror. Whenever I transferred money to Eileen, whether it was large amounts like 520 or 1314, or even when I only had 100 left, I'd still transfer her 50. She would always accept instantly, quicker than she ever replied to my messages. I had suspected that maybe she loved money more than she loved me, but I was hopelessly moved by the little things she did once in a while. When we were out, we saw someone selling candied hawthorn sticks, and I casually told her a silly story from my childhood. When I was young, My mom would only buy one stick for my brother. I'd secretly follow him around, waiting for him to finish so I could pick up the stick and lick the remaining sugar off it. Only throw it away once it licked it completely clean. Can you believe how greedy I was back then? I laughed. As I laughed, I suddenly felt a bit sad. Eileen didn't laugh. Without a word, she ran over an entire batch of candied hawthorn sticks for me. The stack was full of bright red hawthorn berry. And as I carried them on my back, I must have looked like a little porcupine covered in reed berries. The contrast was so cute that I couldn't help but laugh. She'd also bring me freshly roasted chestnuts, running all the way back through the freezing cold to give them to me. By the time she handed them to me, they were still steaming. But she didn't even realize that her hands had been burned and blistered from the cold. Knowing I loved seafood, but was always too frugal to buy it, she would stay up late, waiting until the barbecue stalls were about to close, so she could buy discounted seafood and wake me up to eat it. She definitely understood my personality. All these things seemed heartwarming and touching at first glance. But when I really thought about it, they were just simple gestures that anyone could do. Still, they had me wrapped around her finger. When it came to things involving real benefit, no one was clearer-headed than her. The first thing a blind person does after regaining sight is throw away the cane. When she was down and out, I supported her, and my existence was a testament to her gold-digging past. Now that she's successful, she wants to leave behind all the unpleasant memories of her path. And that includes me. People like Eileen can only share hardship, not success. Unfortunately, I realized this too late in my previous life. Thinking back now, it's just laughable. If someone were to wake me up in the middle of the night just to eat discounted seafood, it'd show them what a good slap from dad feels like. But back then, it was like that saying when you're in love. Even water tastes sweet, and love makes everything okay. Even in those years, the cost of living in Kyoto was cheap. Eileen, with her lofty ambitions, refused to lower herself to take small acting jobs. Our livelihood relied solely on my income. Most of the time, we lived by robbing Peter to pay Paul, borrowing money from friends until we were too embarrassed to ask anymore. While Eileen was hitting dead ends in various film crews, I was introduced to a job both dancing in a bar. I took on jobs performing at banquets as well so long as they paid enough. I'd climb and spin on poles 5 or 6 meters high, faster than the Monkey King on Mount Temi, and quicker than a roast chicken on a rotisserie. In truth, it took me a long time to overcome my fear of height. Later, while doing a part-time job as an event greeter, I caught the eye of a model agency head who invited me to audition for a commercial. It went pretty well. After shooting my first, I naturally transitioned into the entertainment industry, starting with bit parts and eventually landing supporting roles. My later agent, Dory, used to say that although I was the conventional heartthrob stinge, not a sharp Fozzie had a cold and aloof aura, just like my name, which some audiences were really drawn to, as long as I was around Eileen. That is, when it came to Eileen, I was beyond just having a love-struck fool mentality. Was the epitome of a shameless simp. Any trace of that aloof aura? Gone. While I politely agreed with Doreen's advice, I still begged and pleaded with her to take Eileen under her wing. After all, Doreen might have had a sharp tongue, but she was good to her art. I'll never forget Doreen's exaggerated reaction, as if to say, "Spare me, I can't handle that one." Honestly, I didn't blame her. In an industry full of talented actresses, Eileen was at best a pretty facey vase type actress who wasn't even so stunning that people couldn't do without her. She had no natural acting ability. Over the years, she auditioned for several great roles, but her acting remained stiff and terrible. I just couldn't get the hang of it. As Doreen put it, if I was a rough gem that could still be polished, Eileen was a stone from a labyrinth with foul and unyielding, impossible to refine. Looking back now, Doreen really spoke my mind, managing to simultaneously praise and criticize with such finesse. For the longest time, I firmly believed that the reason Eileen never improved her acting skills was because all her talent had been used up in pretending to love me. A gold digger who refused to take the right path doesn't deserve success. But back then, I clearly didn't see it that way. At the time, I was completely delusional, convinced that Eileen just needed a chance, just did the right role to showcase her talent. To help her be discovered, I poured money into sending her to acting classes taught by top instructors and bought her expensive outfits to boost her image. Every time I worked on a film, I made sure to build good relationships with the director, producer, and writers, hoping they might offer Eileen a role in their next project. Eventually, I did manage to get Eileen cast in Clarence's big-budget film, Journey to Subdue the Demon. When the movie was released, Eileen indeed became famous overnight for her role as the tragic yet powerful second female lead. And the first thing she did after hitting it big? She dumped the stepping stone she'd used to get there. I snapped back to reality and glanced at the message Clarence's husband had sent me the show's halfway through. "It's time for you, the lovesick boyfriend, to make your entrance." I couldn't help but laugh as I imagined Eileen, humiliated, tossed out of the hotel without even her underwear, desperately looking for someone to bring her clothes, but too afraid of the embarrassment going public. I took a taxi to Longwood Hotel and then called Eileen. It took several attempts before she finally answered. On the other end, her voice was hoarse, but she casually said she'd had a bit to drink and would probably be home later. She told me if I had anything to say, I should wait until she got back. I pinched my thigh hard, and tears welled up instantly. I choked as I asked her if she was seeing someone behind my back. "I just feel like you've been acting strange lately, ways of avoiding me when you take calls, not wanting me to touch you. And now you're saying you're out with some new friends for dinner. As soon as you left, I followed you. What kind of dinner ends up in a hotel? And you're still not out by this time?" The more I spoke, the more heartbroken I sounded. "You know how much I love you. I'd do anything for you. If you've fallen for someone else, just tell me I won't cling to you. Why do you have to lie to me like this? That love, I'd do anything for you." Used to be the out. There was ever someone in this world who would unconditionally accept her and forgive her no matter what, it would have been me. After a long silence, she hesitated before finally asking for my help. "Bailey, it's not what you think. Right now I'm in a bit of a situation. Can you go home and bring me a set of clothes and drop them off at roommate?" When I got back to the hotel with the clothes, Eileen quickly wrapped herself in a blanket, rushed to the bathroom, and changed in a matter of seconds. I knew she didn't want me to see the other marks on her body. There was no need, Serial. No need. At this point, even a fool could figure out what had happened. I stared at the marks on her neck, pretending to be shocked and angry. "Who did this? These bruises are nasty. All read in purple. Eve and handprint. Were you forced? No way. We have to call the police." As I said that, I pretended to reach for my phone. Eileen panicked and quickly grabbed my phone. "No, don't call the police. That's out. My career in showbiz will be over. And besides, she won't let me off the hook." Looking at her trembling in fear, I couldn't believe I had once been so blinded to fall for someone this low. Suppressing the disgust rising in my chest, I moved closer and wrapped my arms around her, gently comforting her. "It's Clarence. She threatened you to stay with her, didn't she? Don't be afraid. At worst, we can just drop the film." But Eileen suddenly snapped, shoving me away with red eyes and yelling, "I've become like this because of that film. You have no idea what I've sacrificed to get that role. It's easy for you to say to just give it up. But do you even know what I've been through?" As expected, I'd anticipated her reaction. I knew exactly what she had sacrificed, but this was only the beginning. "The price you'll have to pay will go far beyond that." I didn't hold her outburst against her. And I took even better care of her than before. Once her wounds healed at home, she went off to join the film crew. Before leaving, she firmly grasped my hand and promised that no matter how famous she became, she wouldn't forget me and that I should wait for her. Sooner or later, she'd marry me. I neither accepted nor rejected her promises. I simply told her to focus on her work for now, as this was the time for distractions over love. She was so touched that she clutched my hand and swore her loyalty once again. Really, Now she's using the idea of marriage to string me along. All those years before, whenever I mentioned marriage, she always looked torn, as if I were forcing her into a corner. Sorry, then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kind of emotional videos." But I'm already on the mountain now, scaling Kongtong Mountain overnight. At that, it seemed that the binding agreement Clarence's husband had forced Eileen into had triggered her sense of crisis. When Clarence's husband caught her red-handed, she was left with two choices: either leave the Monster Slayer production and get blacklisted in the industry, effectively ending her acting career. But at least she could live in peace as an ordinary person, or stay in the film but cut ties with Clarence completely and sign a high-stakes contract. Things had already blown up by that point. If she wanted them to let her stay, she had to prove her worth. Eileen, ever the gambler, chose the latter without hesitation, pulling me into her mess as well. She kept her affair with Clarence under wraps, but her agent knew about the agreement and even advised her to reconsider, warning her about the massive compensation she'd face if she failed. I overheard her whispering to her agent on the phone, "I'd made up my mind. If I don't take this chance, I'll never have another. And if I fail, I still have Kaimo to fall back on, don't I? If it comes to that, I'll just marry him. As a husband, he'll have to take on my debt. He can just take on more low-budget roles to pay it off. Or worst case, he can go back to dancing, he's good at it anyway." All the dangerous performances I did to make money, risking my life to support her, were nothing but a joke. When I first started, I wasn't very good at it. One time, while transitioning between moves, I lost my balance and fell straight from the pole, my head buzzing from the impact. A client gave me extra money to go get checked at the hospital, but I pocketed the cash and headed home instead. I was dizzy and nauseous and thought about treating myself to a cab back to our apartment. But then I remembered Eileen was still sick in bed, and the money I saved on a cab could get her an extra chicken leg for dinner. She wasn't in good health. She needed the nourishment. In the end, I endured the discomfort and took the bus home. The ride was so bumpy I almost threw up. When I got back to our little place and saw the light Eileen had left on for me, I felt like it was all worth it. Those who betrayed rule deserve to swallow 1,000 needles. Eileen joined the film crew, and a few months later, when filming wrapped and the movie was still in post-production awaiting release, her attitude towards me had already grown colder. She wasn't even sure if the movie would make her famous, yet she acted so confidently. It was because, after all her scheming, she had once again, just like in her past life, hooked up with Keeley, the young master of Hahawo Entertainment. This development caught me off guard, but it didn't matter. If she dared to scam her way into marriage, it would only make her downfall all the more notorious when the time came. Keeley is carefree and loves to play, but he's also proud and has been through 2 marriages. He's the type who plays with women, never the one being played. He doesn't take anyone's leftovers, especially a dirty woman. If Eileen dares to deceive him, she's biting off more than she can. Earlier, Eileen had convinced me to delete everything related to her from my phone. People might get jealous and try to use our relationship against her. This included our chat history, transaction record, and receipts for the luxury clothes I bought her. When she saw I'd wiped it all clean, she was finally at ease. At first, she just stopped coming home regularly. Then, I couldn't even catch a glimpse of her anymore. Eventually, she stopped replying to my messages altogether. And finally, I was left with a big red exclamation mark bolding. Her moves were exactly the same as in our past life. Then, I never promised her I'd never team up with anyone to harm her. She kissed my lips and said, "Silly, I'm just afraid you're too pure and will be taken advantage of by others." And I believed her. In the end, during our confrontation, she twisted the story and turned it against me. With no solid evidence, hardly anyone spoke up for me. She walked away unscathed, while I was labeled by her fans as a freeloader trying to extort money after she became famous. I was even killed by one of her extreme fans, dying with my eyes wide open in regret. What she doesn't know is that this time, I took screenshots and backed up everything in advance. When the movie was released, it became both a critical and box office success. Eileen rode the wave of fame, gaining a lot of attention. And rumors started circulating that she was about to get engaged to the once famous young master. It seemed her career and love life were flourishing. While she was basking in her success, Doreen mocked me for being the neglected first wife. It didn't matter. I would make my move and watch her stumble. I created a small, an ottoman, on a Saturday night, when I was sure that every working person would be paying attention. I organized all the screenshots and posted them. Then I tagged Eileen. I heard you're getting engaged. How about you pay back the money your ex-boyfriend spent on you first? After I posted this Weibo, it stirred up a huge wave of reactions. Bystanders were surprised to see Eileen, who looked like a pure, white moonlight figure, turn out to be a gold digger. Using her fame to kick her boyfriend to the curb was a modern date and shimmy. Only her fans and paid commenters were defending her. The transfers and luxury purchases were all voluntary. Right? If he gave it, he gave it. Now that she's famous, he comes out to dig up old dirt. What a pathetic guy. Yeah, so what if the transfers were instant? Does he think she should have bathed and burned incense first before opening them? I calculated. It really isn't that much money. These days, if your transfers don't add up to over 100,000, it's considered a gold dig. I say, whether you're a guy or girl. Just on date. Come, she's a star. This amount isn't even close to gold digging. It should involve a sponsor spending millions on a car or pouring money into a project for her to be the lead. Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kind of emotional videos." Ridiculous. Just because a girl shares a milk tea or an Angus burger, they call her a gold digger? With our Xiaobei's look, it should be at least over 100 million to be considered gold digging. And yet, what an average guy. Spending a few bucks and thinking he's a big deal. I hadn't even started to respond when the onlookers couldn't take it anymore. They had never seen someone so brazenly enjoying the benefits of a relationship. Sure enough, they were fans siding with the main character. They responded for me. This guy was willing. He was just too young then. Couldn't tell a person from a dog. In this endless back and forth, he knew the transfers were instant. Then naturally took the phone away, smiling as he said, "You never used to watch these kind of emotional videos." His response time is faster than my dog catching a frisbee. I can't stop laughing. This is the first time I've seen someone begging for food and still being picky. Then, she relied on her boyfriend to pay for her meals. Didn't she not want to strike it rich? She simply I mean, can you fans not be so deluded? A girl receiving 1314 or 520 is not the same as a girl receiving milk tea and burger. Are these even comparable? 80,000 bucks could buy a ton of milk tea. Right. Should take over 100 million to be considered gold digging. So rich fans better start sending her money, so she can dig enough to reach 1 billion, because she won't last long in this entertainment circle anyway. Amidst the overwhelming mockery, fans finally found a point to counterattack. Stop talking nonsense. Having been supported by an ex-boyfriend isn't a black mark. It's not like she's a lawmaker. Even when you die, my sister won't quit the entertainment industry. Indeed, this single moral flaw could at most damage Eileen's reputation and lose her some fan support. As long as she still had capital backing her, she wouldn't be completely pulled down. But what if the capital abandoned her? Here's the translation. Tai exposed the news. Eileen quickly climbed to several high-ranking trending topics. Just as Eileen was becoming popular, the revelation of her ex-boyfriend's identity painted her as a modern-day male version of Wang Bakwan. Honey, say something. Soon, her PR team stepped in, but my exposure contained the truth, and the public's curiosity was at an all-time high. The heat couldn't be suppressed, and public opinion started to shift against Eileen. Desiring to keep things low-key, Eileen could no longer sit idly by and decided to respond personally. She admitted to her fans that she indeed had a relationship with me, but claimed that we had amicably parted ways. She also expressed her gratitude for my care during that dark period of her life. As for the money I had spent on her and the transfer, She promised to calculate the total amount and return it to me, asking me not to occupy public resources with our private matters anymore. What a lofty attitude. She knew the news about her ex-boyfriend would come out, and as long as she had thick skin, I couldn't really do anything to her. At the same time, my videos of pole dancing in a bar were suddenly dug up and spread wildly, along with my personal information. Some recognized me as a small star who had played a few roles. Unfortunately, I was too obscure, and most people focused on my pole dancing instead. Fans seemed to have finally found a point to attack me and began a frenzy of online harassment and even spreading false rumors. What kind of good man goes to dance for money in such a place? Who knows if he's done something even more shameful? Laughing my head off. Everyone, look what I found, Mr. Kai actually has a record of dishonesty. The deeper we dig, the more treasure we find. A guy who borrowed money and didn't pay it back on tomato, you really think his words are credible? This time, I chose to face the camera directly and respond. A live stream attracted a lot of viewers. Some supported me, others insulted me, and there were plenty of onlookers, leading to a flurry of comments. I was unfazed and simply replied to the questions that concerned viewers the most. Yeah, we broke up, but it was a one-sided breakup on my part. I showed the camera the many messages I had sent to Eileen that went unanswered, culminating in the page where I was blocked. I danced at the pole for a living because it really is a lucrative job. The person dancing in the bar video is indeed me. And there's nothing shameful about it. I won't go out of my way to prove my innocence. If you think I've done something illegal, please provide evidence. Otherwise, you're spreading rumors, and I can sue you for defamation. I continued to display photos. Here's the translation. Do you see that? I'm still dancing at the banquet. And while I dance, I'm earning our living expenses. As I dance, I even got her into the production team. Earning a living through my own abilities isn't shameful. It's being unwilling to admit your past that's truly embarrassing. The comment section exploded with truth. What with truth? Why do I feel like when he says? Someone countered. People strive for better things. Eileen just doesn't want to continue being entangled with him. How is that shameful? That money was also given willingly. It's better than him borrowing money and not paying it back. Facing the barrage of questions, I displayed the hospital bills from when Eileen was. I did borrow money online, and I did have a late payment record for a while. At that time, Eileen was seriously ill, and I was financially strapped, still owing money to friend. In the end, I had to cash out my online loan to cover her medical expenses. I barely managed to scrape the money together before the due date. But when I was with Eileen, there was a rare opportunity that required gifting to smooth out relationship. So the money I had set aside for repaying my debts went to other purposes. The comments went wild. Wow, who can watch this without saying this guy is the ultimate love fool? Even Wang Bakwan would sing a line about him. You're going to hear voices in your head. Wang Bakwan at least foraged for herself, while this guy digs up wild vegetables just to give them all to Eileen, settling for a little vegetable soup himself. Honestly, I'm worried that if Eileen apologizes to him now and says a few nice words, he might just forgive her on the spot and come out to clarify that he's actually spreading rumor. My heart is breaking for you. Vote. You should start selling stuff. I'll definitely buy. But let's be clear and give any more money to Eileen. After all, the audience's support is also support. Technically, isn't Eileen's birthday coming up? Then that totally took the song away. Smiling as he said, you never used to watch these kinds of emotional videos. Don't go crazy and transfer her any money. Coming in with a mindset to just watch and leaving with a fan banner? As long as you fix that love-struck mentality, your love enthusiast will charge into battle for you. Looking at these comments, I felt genuinely touched. Nah, from a few mindless fans still defending her. Public opinion had almost completely turned in my favor. Eileen's reputation among the general public was irreparably damaged, and the real drama was just beginning. At the time, I told Clarence's husband that although he didn't want to divorce Clarence, the cat doesn't just steal one. It's hard to ensure that Clarence won't commit such a foolish act again in the future. If he has solid evidence against Clarence, then it would be entirely up to him to control Clarence from then on. and his wife have been living separately with hearts apart. And he has invested in many industries, secretly for fallback for himself, which Clarence is unaware of. One Hotel is one of the industries where Clarence's husband holds shares. He had someone install a tiny hidden camera in the room in advance, capturing the two of them in a compromising situation in clear detail. The movie has already been released, and I told Clarence's husband that it's time to release what he has in hand. The video was edited, with Clarence's entire body heavily pixelated, while Eileen only had her key areas blurred out. Her face, filled with a mix of pain and pleasure, was clearly visible right in front of the camera. Clarence's husband did this not only to humiliate the woman who dared to seduce his wife, but also to warn Clarence that if he ever did it again, video released would not have her blurred out. The video was quickly taken down by the platform staff, and the account that posted the video was also banned. However, many people saved and re-uploaded it, making it impossible to completely block it. The fans who still supported Eileen were completely outraged. It's important to know that a star's greatest charm comes from the fans' imagination of her, and once that is shattered, the star is nothing. Witnessing the woman they idealized in their hearts being pleasured by another woman was a blow no fan could handle. Some fans were still making a last-ditch effort to find evidence that the video was a composite of different heads, but the final result was that the video showed no signs of manipulation. It didn't take long for the fans to go from doubt to betrayal. Lan want to keep the loved one alive, while hate makes one want to destroy them. They once directed at me are now being directed at Eileen with doubled intensity. Having a girlfriend of the same sex is not a problem, but Eileen had a woman during our relationship and then started dating Keely after we broke up. Onlookers who love to see drama unfold cruelly commented Eileen was just exposed for abandoning her live-in boyfriend of many years, and now there's this video of her in a homosexual encounter. Keely is so unfortunate, ending up with a deceitful lesbian who's promiscuous and can't satisfy him either way. I suspect the person above is saying something indecent, but I have no evidence. However, Keely should not propose to her now, or he'll be laughed at for having a wife who is a prostitute, and causing him such a significant loss of faith. Eileen's career in the entertainment industry seems to be doomed after losing her fans and her reputation. All her business endorsements were cancelled, and roles that were originally planned for her were suddenly replaced by others. As a discarded figure, she has lost all commercial value. Moreover, her husband Clarence is using the contract she signed earlier to pressure her for debt repayment. It was at this time that Eileen thought of me. She reconnected with me, saying she regretted her actions and wanted to restart our relationship. She asked me to publicly clarify that all previous incidents were misunderstandings and to testify in a video that she was coerced. You're so popular now, and netizens are all on your side. They will believe whatever you say. Daily. Can you please help me this one time? I will be devoted to you and live a good life with you from now on. My response to her was too late. You only think of the baby after it's dead. You only know to turn after the car has hit the wall. And you only think of wiping when the snot runs into your mouth. You talk about being devoted to me, but without a mirror. Don't you still have to pee? Take a look at how filthy you are. After that, I added her to my blacklist and felt refreshed. Eileen couldn't pay off her debts and Cal didn't stay in the country anymore. She voluntarily signed a contract to go to country or to engage in a certain profession. When I heard about this from Clarence's husband, I was choosing among several scripts handed to me. Eileen disappeared silently from the entertainment circle. As an artist with a bad track record who had just become popular, no one paid attention to her news anymore. On the other hand, I gained a lot of fans and received several good scripts during this period. Having lived my life again, I no longer chase fame and fortune in the entertainment industry. As long as the audience likes me, I strive to give 120 sincerity in my acting. I go with the flow, believing that heaven has the best plan. Gradually, I have gained many fans who love me. They express their adoration openly and directly in the comment section of my Weibo. I no longer lack love and am living well, having put many things behind me, and rarely thinking of Eileen's name. Unexpectedly, I learned about her again from the news. A massive injury incident occurred at a certain in-country R. Chinese national staff member was brutally abused by another Chinese national male for 6 hours, resulting in severe injury. The perpetrator has been arrested. The face in the picture, even if turned to, I would still recognize it. It's the extreme fan who killed me in my previous life. Back then, Eileen's fans, under her subtle guidance, constantly abused and harassed me. They even found out my address and sent me flower wreaths and white chrysanthemum. Unable to bear the harassment, I had to find a new place to live. Before I could move, one of her male fans, who was already mentally unstable, broke into my house in the middle of the night. Then, believing that I was slandering Eileen and trying to destroy her career, lost his mind and came directly to take my life. I'd initially anticipated this and moved early. But this time, his target of revenge had switched to Eileen. It seemed that the collapse of his idol had given him quite a shock. The news reported it as quite severe. I wondered if, when Eileen gets sold, she might be slapped by a caregiver for seducing men. Thinking of this, I quickly tapped on the electronic wooden fish. Amitabha, may the Buddha forgive me, for I am naturally prone to laughter. After filming several movies, I gradually accumulated a considerable amount of money. I donated most of this money to school. From then on, the sky was wide and clear. The clouds had dispersed, and the past was just a prelude. My brand new life was just beginning.